We're recording. Okay, today we're talking about Chapter 14, Global Production, Outsourcing, and Logistics. So, Todd Coleman of GLS, why did GLS go to India or wherever you went to produce your product or service?
We offer a managed service and our customers are global based. So it really comes down to wherever the customer has locations in which for us to monitor and provide our monitoring and reporting services. We have several customers who have locations inside of India, and we do offer managed services within that country as well as most countries around the world as well. We don't actually manufacture because we're in the service industry, so we didn't choose to go, we just go and support wherever the locations are of the corporate customers that we have.
Alright, and when you're choosing why you have to produce them there, are there any costs that outweigh the benefits and that make it difficult doing business in that country versus doing it in the U.S.?
One of the things that India actually requires is a value-added tax, and India requires, specifically through AT&T, India requires that we have a presence inside of India as a business unit in India, which we do not. Therefore, to do business in India, you were supposed to pay the value-added taxes and actually allow that tax to be deducted off of the U.S. corporate tax that we pay. So this is one interesting stickler in regards to India and the fact that they want to collect taxes from us even though we do not have a presence inside that country.
So can you explain about the logistics of your outsourcing and just the basic overall logistics of your company?
Basically, being a service provider, we need to gain access to the customer's network to be able to provide that monitoring and management service. So what we do is we actually gain access to the customer's network from our network operations center in Charlotte, North Carolina, to the customer's head end or data center location. We build a VPN tunnel to them, and then we actually put a data collector on site, and that data collector will allow us to go out and do management and monitoring of the entire wide area network, regardless of where it is in the world.
All right. So when you're you have like a supply chain, since you're global, like how do you manage that global supply chain?
One of the pieces in the supply chain that we have is equipment replacement. And so when we are monitoring and managing a Cisco router, for example, if it's in the United States and that router fails, we contact Cisco and they can actually locally bring another router out to the site and we can get it back up and operational. Although it changes when you start looking at Asia Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, and Middle East, and basically the rest of the world, there's a lot of customs that are involved. So what we're able to do is actually procure replacement equipment in country. It's particularly important in India and China because then we can bypass some very, very lengthy customs in order to get the customer back up and operational.
Do you ever see any problems like that are involved when you're trying to get the equipment to them and they're not satisfied with it, and like the customer service, like how do you deal with that?
We do have some perceptions where customers buy equipment and they're not satisfied with the overall performance. We have to work with them and show that the equipment is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, and we have to also give guidance to the customer on where they're seeing value in this equipment and the service that they're getting. For example, WAN acceleration services. I've got a customer that's got about 50 locations all over the world, and they're not 100% satisfied with the performance and the cost associated with it. And yet we were able to go in there through reporting and demonstrate that they're actually saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in overall wide area network expense because they have deployed this. So it was a situation in which we had to set proper expectations with the customer because of the choice of the equipment that they had purchased.
So when you're talking about the choice of equipment, when you go into certain countries, do they ever have like a certain brand that they only use in that country, like only a certain type of product, like that everyone uses that brand, and like
Well,
certain
Cisco is a good example, and it's worldwide. It's available worldwide. Most of these organizations on an enterprise level will make decisions on what equipment goes in on a global basis. Very few customers have the split where one half of the world, or a region has one set of equipment, and then the rest of the world has a different set of equipment. The problem we run into is when you start mixing equipment like that, we tend to end up with intermittent network-related issues and failures, which are very hard to pinpoint when we don't have like equipment across the world.
So coordination is very important when like involving the brands of routers and no network intermittence and.
Absolutely. One other piece of our service is that as you have a router that terminates a circuit, we also monitor and manage the circuit themselves. So there's a tremendous amount of coordination between the big provider of the circuit, being AT&T, as well as the local exchange carrier, which brings what we call the last mile. Those are all going to be regional players in the United States. So if we had an issue with a circuit and we determined that the router itself was fine, we still have to go back and coordinate between the customer, the local exchange carrier, and the backbone network provider to ensure that we have that particular circuit operational and that site is passing traffic properly.
Well, that pretty much explains outsourcing. Very good job. Thank you.
Sure.
All right.